Be careful what you wish for.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Just everybody else is gonna pan out.
Oh my god.
That's nice. That makes it easier, doesn't it?
Hello, everybody. This is Jeannie,
And Luis.
and welcome to
Evil Asterisk.
Podcast. We just watched The Coffee
Coffee
Table. Of course, we did have coffee as we were watching.
Yes, and we have no coffee table.
Yes, we don't.
So it was a weirdly aspirational movie for us.
So let me start. I was like, I'm going to say Jesus because we were talking about all the religious aspects. Okay, let me start again. Okay. So first of all, I think we should generally say what we thought of the movie before I jump in and read this. So we just finished watching The Coffee Table, and it was a ride. Let's just say it was a ride. It was a bit of a thrill ride. It is a dark comedy, and it went back and forth between dark and comedy. It was definitely a horror movie.
Definitely a horrific experience.
But
we wouldn't say it's scary. It's more about making you very, very uncomfortable for the duration of the thing.
Right. So when we heard it was a horror comedy, we were thinking, okay, it's going to be kind of goofy at times. And I'm not a big fan of the goofy horror
She doesn't
comedies.
like them in general.
Not a big fan of it, but I want to give it a chance. And I've liked several, but not a whole lot. But then I was pleasantly surprised to find out it was more of a dark comedy. It was more horror and more dark than comedy. Let me read the IMDb description. Jesus and Maria are a couple going through a difficult time in their relationship. Nevertheless, they have just become parents. To shape their new life, they decide to buy a new coffee table, a decision that will change their existence. So, I should also mention that this film is from Spain, and what was very interesting about it is that it was filmed in the course of
10 days.
As far as the timeline in the film itself, it only takes place within a few hours. We realized as we were watching it, oh, it's probably not going to shift from this location. It's going to stay here. It could be a play. It was very well done. And the way humor was used was just
brilliant. Brilliant. It's a taut, well-paced thriller with very intense horror elements that will crawl under your skin throughout this almost 90 minutes of duration.
Yeah, it's surprising. Not telling you the main thrust of this because we don't want to give this away until the spoiler section. When something happens that is horrific in this film, we, as the audience, felt guilty. And that was brilliant. And we will explain that in the spoiler section because I think that that is probably the most brilliant part of the film. And as we continue on, we are taken on a journey, and one character, we are following that particular character and going through what this character goes through.
Yeah, I think now is probably a good time to kind of talk about the setting or the basic setup of this thing.
Yes.
It opens with this incredible shot of a woman screaming. She's giving birth. She looks like an old witch, basically.
That's what I was thinking.
And she looks like that throughout the movie. And this is like one of the heroes,
You're
quote unquote,
mean to
of
the
this
thing.
thing.
You can't
I'm
be
not.
mean to the
But I mean,
actress.
it was a choice.
I think they were specifically trying to make the main female character seem witchy. Like Luis said, not only was she screaming in a way when she was giving birth that made her sound witchy, even in the captions, because we always watch with captions, it says maniacal laughter. So later on when she's laughing, she has a laughing fit at some point in the film. And it says maniacal laughter. It is so uncomfortable and so witch-like. And she sounds a lot like, she has a lower voice. She sounds, I even mentioned Shogre Agashtalu,
Yeah.
which I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
That's pretty good.
But she has that lower, very, very low voice. Much lower than I.
Right.
She goes way down. It was clearly trying to get that across.
I was going to make
That
my
was
Downton
interesting.
Abbey impression again. Lady Mary.
Mary. Well, her name is Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
or Maria.
Maria. Yeah, so
No.
this couple, they're together. They have a newborn baby of sorts. But anyway, they're at this furniture store. It opens up looking at this kind of hideous upscale coffee table with 2 statues of naked women in a very Art Deco kind of way, or trying to look Art Deco.
Right, and when you say upscale, I would say that it's trying to aspire
Yeah.
to the upscale.
Gauche,
It feels very,
you know?
yes, gauche is the perfect word.
There's this older salesman really trying his best to sell them a coffee table. The husband, for some reason, latches onto the thing, and the wife is clearly saying, I don't want it, it looks ugly. There's something pushing the husband toward really holding his ground, like picking that hill to die on and get that thing and
Right.
buy that table.
Right, and you realize during the course of the conversation, which is brilliant, with the salesperson, that you side basically with the wife, even though she's getting kind of nasty about it. She's giving all the reasons why would we ever get this coffee table? It doesn't make any sense. And I think the audience generally agrees with her. And so we wonder, why is the husband doing this? And as Louise said, he picked a hill to die on, because it's clear that during this conversation at the beginning of the movie, we realize that the husband feels maybe emasculated. So he's using this as an opportunity to make a choice. And he pushes the choice. And of course, it's like 2 against 1, because the sales
And he's a guy,
person,
yeah.
he's also another guy, wants them to buy it. And it's funny, we watch these 3 people in this furniture store, which basically seems vast but empty, devoid of other customers.
It does not look like IKEA, let's just say that. It looks like very low rent.
Almost like a big warehouse. And these 3 people are looking at this one table in the middle of this gigantic store. And the guy says at one point, I got to get back to my other customers. And we laugh because there's clearly no one else in the store. There's a lot of humor in this conversation between these 3 people. It allows you to feel, okay, this is going to be a funny movie. You're not really sure where the humor is going to take you, and you are definitely incorrect if you think it's going to be some slapstick, goofy movie. But it definitely shows levity at the beginning.
And I have a confession to make. I sided with the wife on the argument side of things, but in the end I sided with the husband, and I wanted him to buy the stupid table, to stick it to her. She was being domineering, and she didn't have a right to just veto the thing altogether. So in a way, secretly I was rooting for him to get the table, not thinking in terms of plot, but just thinking in terms, oh yeah, you go, man, you do it.
But I really do think, and this comes back to this meta idea, I think this is brilliant. We are supposed to side with the woman, Maria, who is the wife and mother. We're supposed to side with her. And then we're supposed to not side with her. It is definitely a manipulative conversation. We know that this film is called The Coffee Table. We are curious about the coffee table. So ultimately, we do want the husband to prevail. And he also just seems like a nice guy.
A nice guy, yeah.
And we're like, oh, we want him to win the
We
argument.
want to side with the easygoing one, you
Even
know.
if we think the table is ridiculous, we want to side with the guy, and then we know it's called the coffee table. So we know ultimately that they're going to purchase the table. There's no spoiler there.
No. So of course they buy the thing. He kills himself, dragging it up like who knows how many flights of stairs.
And there's that trope. You often have these scary movies that show from the top this sort of winding staircase, and you think someone's going to fall. It's a similar idea, but yet it's used to show humor in this case, which is this guy trying to take this unwieldy box and push it up multiple floors through the same horror trope. We see him struggling, he gets in, and he basically is going to start assembling this. But the wonderful aspect of the credits is that they look like an IKEA manual. It's brilliant. The credit sequence shows pages of instructions for this table. And within it, it also shows the credits for people that work on the film. So it was fun. And again, it brought that humor into view. As we look at the credits, we think this movie's going to be funny. we're like, okay, we're relaxing, but it's also going to have horror elements. So the tone at that point feels much more comedic than horrific.
The name of the table was definitely a reference to IKEA.
It's
Table is
also a
pretender.
Swedish company, so they are making fun of IKEA.
Yeah, absolutely. So this guy is, killing himself assembling it, and it's impossible, but he's doing it. And then at the very end, he realizes he's missing a screw. And the problem is that this one screw that's missing is the one that is used with 4 others to place the glass top securely on the table. And it's
Right.
missing one screw. So there's a whole subplot about him trying to get this screw and calls the salesman. For some reason, everybody's in love with this guy. Neighbors love the main character, Jesus. The salesperson seems to be attracted to him.
Right. So he calls the salesman, and after going back and forth, finally the salesman agrees to come by and bring the screw to him. What was really interesting about this movie is that we follow, as I said, one character throughout, Jesus. We basically follow him throughout most of the movie. He sort of grounds the story for us because we have information that we share with him. And what was really interesting is the use of other characters, conversations, events, subplots, and other little things. The duration is probably just a few hours. It basically starts at the furniture store and it goes through an evening event. So it goes through just a few hours. During that time, there are different things that happen. Maria is at a store and she runs into someone that she used to know, and that woman is there with her daughter, a teenager or preteen, and Maria says, last time I saw you that we were a little baby or you were tiny. And you can tell that they haven't seen each other obviously for a while, and they talk about various topics, but while they're talking, you're feeling uncomfortable because you have more information. And you are following the husband and what he's going through. Because of that, the conversation takes on new meaning. And there are other conversations that happen and other little events here and there that occur. And they take on so much more meaning for you. They're innocuous to anybody else. But to the viewer, they are more meaningful and cause more tension because of what you know and what you've been experiencing following the husband. And the way it was shot was really interesting. It was just on point.
I somehow managed to contact the director, Caye Casas, on Facebook via Messenger. And some viewers might think that they're having some sort of a dinner, an early dinner, but it's actually the very opposite. And he confirmed it. That's a very legitimate late lunch, believe it or not, that started, 2 or 3 p.m. or something. And just, went late, and by the time they're done eating, it's kind of getting dark. As you know, the movie is definitely quite dark by then, so it kind of matches.
So there were a very small number of characters in this movie. We had the husband and the wife, who are the parents of this little newborn. And as we mentioned, their names are Jesus and Maria, which is like Jesus and Mary, which we thought was very interesting. And we also have, later on, his brother and his brother's girlfriend. And another interesting set of characters are the neighbors. There's a 13-year-old girl who lives in another apartment in the building, and her mother. I don't know that there's a man in the picture.
Doesn't seem to be the case, yeah.
No, I think it's a single mom. So I know one of the things that Luis wanted to talk about was how everybody seems to love the character of Jesus, except for his wife. They're kind of estranged. They don't really get along and they don't seem very close. And clearly we find out in the initial conversation, even with the furniture store guy, I believe we find out that he didn't want to have children.
Yes,
Yeah.
He throws that in her face. He's complaining about the name of the kid, which is Caetano in Spanish, basically. She pushes the name, she throws it in his face that he didn't want to have kids.
Right, and it's her grandfather's name.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And then the salesperson says, oh yeah, that's my name too, which I thought was, again, another way of trying to get on the wife's side to get her to agree to buy the table.
The wife needs to go out to buy ingredients and wine for their meal. And while she's out, he's home alone with the baby. But the thing is, when she's about to leave the apartment, she left the door hit a little too hard, and the baby, who was sleeping until now, wakes up and starts screaming. and it's a very unhappy baby. And he's walking around kind of making fun of the wife, making fun of the name, saying, hey, you're crying because you hate your name. For us to go further, we're going to have to get into spoiler territory. The movie kind of makes a point that everyone, like Jeannie said, but the wife, but Maria, somehow seems to be attracted
or enthralled with him,
to this lead character, to Jesus. Who is they, right? It's the salesperson, somehow we figured out later, that's kind of attracted to him. We find out there's a 13-year-old who's obsessed with him. Oh yeah, the mother of the 13-year-old also. Basically, the movie is sending a message that this guy is very well liked. The opposite to his wife. People don't seem to care as much about the wife. They like him.
She's gregarious yet abrasive, because when she saw the quote-unquote old friend at the wine place or the store, the woman seemed to be fine with her. I mean, she has no problem having conversations with people. She comes across as very confident but abrasive, but people don't necessarily react in a negative way toward her. I don't see that. I think we as the audience is supposed to react kind of negatively toward her. We're being told that she's annoying, but I don't see all the characters finding her annoying.
The writing and the directing basically paint her as this kind of unattractive character that whose sole purpose in life was to have this kid. We don't know what any of them do for work, for example.
Yeah.
We have no clue.
She feels very confident to me. She feels very like, I don't give a crap. I had a baby and I'm fine. I feel like she's borderline abusive in a way. This old friend, she says to her, oh yeah, just you wait. I think she was sort of saying, yeah, it's not going to be easy having this child.
She's being very negative in some ways.
Right in front of her daughter.
Cautioning Maria about how difficult things are going to be. Well, Maria was trying to be really positive and, like Jeannie said, gregarious. I still felt some desperation on her part, trying to hold on to the dream.
She was unhappy with her husband. That was the only thing I could get out of that. I wasn't feeling like she was unhappy with herself.
Well, they didn't give us enough information about the relationship,
other
than the fact that she complains that she chooses everything, that she makes all the choices.
And we should say this film is, in a weird way, even though there are a very small number of characters, it's plot-driven in a way, more than character-driven, strangely enough. Because of what ends up happening, there's an overarching thing that occurs. Everything sort of falls into place around this particular happening or incident, and we will talk about that in the spoiler section. And then you get more into the internal workings of the Jesus character. You don't necessarily get into the internal workings of the other characters. So I thought that was interesting. There's a little more superficial character development for the other characters, including the wife, who again is being represented as more of a cackling, maniacal, witch-like character or screaming character or controlling more than anything else.
I think kind of demonizing her is essential for what happens later, because eventually we go live in the guy's head, and we stay with him, like Jeannie said, for the rest of the movie. I think for that to work on an emotional level, we needed to basically see her as kind of someone unlikable and see him, like everyone else seems to think so, as very likable. I think that's the really neat trick that they pull with the setup.
The general direction and tension, I thought, was masterful.
I think so. And I think the direction has one merit. It's almost as if the direction is invisible. It's just like good music in a movie. Good music in a movie, you don't notice it. Bad music, you will notice it every single time.
You will.
And I think in this one, it doesn't have really showy, crazy camera moves
not super
and
stylized
angles and things that will kind of sometimes take you out of the movie, because it's really the director say, hey, look what I can do.
Yeah, look at me.
You know?
Yeah,
it's
it
the
didn't
opposite.
have that feeling.
It's very much grounded. It's realistic.
It feels real.
And it moves fast. The editing of this thing is lightning quick, actually.
Yeah, it's nice.
They will switch between two shots, like someone starts to turn her face and you go straight to the close-up. And they do that all the time, like little glimpses here and there.
And there was a lot with the Jesus character where you're realizing you're seeing some things from his point of view. Innocuous things, either their conversations or their visuals, they are made to look more horrific or feel horrific in the context of what you know, and the fact that, as Louise says, you are living in this character's head.
Yeah, once the wife leaves the apartment to go grocery shopping and he stays alone with the baby, that's our transition into being with him.
I feel like that's what the director intended. I felt that this could have been an episode in an anthology horror series. It would have been a very clever, very smart entry into that. But I do not feel that it suffered at all as a film. Probably took place in just a few hours, basically in one setting, with a small number of characters, a very focused premise. It was tight, but it was still tight in that hour and a half time. It would have been fine in an hour as well. But I think the way that this was directed made it work as a film, but I think it does have the dexterity. The writing was deftly done to the point where it could have worked in either context. So I actually say that that's to the film's favor.
There's very limited scope in terms of locations, right? There's what, 2 or 3 locations max?
Small number of characters.
Yeah.
A very focused, plot-driven premise that works really well as an episode.
It's
of a
just
series.
perfectly realized now, and it makes sense why they only took 10 days to shoot this. It's just so well paced. It moves so fast, never too fast. The whole time, the entirety of the running time, you're uncomfortable and your skin is crawling.
On the journey through the one character
and
that
you're
you're
stuck
following.
in this guy's head, and you're like, I want to be anywhere but in this guy's head at this point.
Then you don't know what's going to happen. And I think it's a problem-solving situation where you are stuck in Jesus's head and you're dealing with troubleshooting and problem-solving and how is everything going to pan out. And that is part of the tension. So it's been time for a while to go into the spoiler section. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right, so let's get into our spoiler alert. Okay, here we go. Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert!
10,
9,
8,
7,
6,
5,
4,
3,
2,
1, 0!
Spoiler!
Okay.
Okay.
So, this
All
one,
right.
this one's pretty horrific.
We're going to give you a trigger warning that what we're about to tell you is really graphic and very, very disturbing. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely a trigger warning on this one.
It is horrific. As we were saying, there is a particular incident that happens in the film that just changes everything. When Maria leaves, remember Luis mentioned that she makes a loud sound as she's leaving and the door slams when she's going to get the groceries.
So now the baby's disturbed, the baby's awake, and the baby's quite unhappy.
So we're watching this and we're thinking, this baby is making a lot of noise. Now, the father, the Jesus character, is holding the baby and he's talking to the baby. He's like, oh, she gave you a horrible name. Oh, your mommy did this to you. But he's doing it in a soothing way.
In a weirdly loving way.
A strangely loving way. And super patient with the kid. But at the same time saying things that are kind of a little nasty against his wife. And the name of the baby because he doesn't like the name. But it's going on for quite a long time and the cries are getting very annoying. And Luis and I were both like, we want this to end. This horrible
Like we won't be able to handle
crying.
this for the whole entire duration of this film.
Exactly. If this is what we're going to be hearing throughout the film, we just want it to end. And guess what? It does. Pretty quickly.
In a pretty brutal way.
All of a sudden, we don't hear any crying anymore. It's off screen.
No. And then we hear glass breaking, and that's how we knew something tragic
happened.
Accident had happened.
But it was off screen. It was interesting because we first see him going back and forth with the baby, and then the camera pulls away, and then we don't see him anymore with the baby. The camera's in a different spot.
We're by the living room, I think, and he's all the way back on the other end somehow.
But we hear these sounds. I didn't know that there was a trip. I just heard the glass.
Oh, no, he tripped. He tripped.
We knew that later.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at the time. I wasn't sure what happened. That's why I liked it, because I didn't know what happened. All I knew is that the baby stopped crying. And it was at the point where we were even talking and saying, boy, we hope this baby's going to stop crying. And that made it a meta experience for us.
Yeah, we felt guilty.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we felt guilty because we realized, wait, the baby isn't crying anymore. That's not good. That's not supposed to happen suddenly. There's a reveal, and we discover
that the kid has been decapitated by the coffee table.
The little baby.
Because the glass that wouldn't go on top of the table because of the missing screw was left in a vertical orientation against one of the statues. So when he tripped and the baby fell, baby got decapitated. Oh my fucking god.
What? The baby?
It's annoying, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I can handle this portion of the movie. Really loud. Oh, what happened? Uh-oh.
Decapitated the baby?
The coffee table! I think the audience got its wish. I think this is a meta
And then
film.
we all feel guilty.
The audience wished it. It would be clever. It's not about the characters, it's about the audience. Or an unconscious wish of the character.
Now think about a movie where this happens. That's like one of the worst possible things that can happen.
Ever.
It's literally probably top 5 worst things that can happen to a person. It's horrific. And maybe some people just can't handle watching this one. The baby got decapitated and the wife is gone, happily on her way shopping.
We already know before she meets
Yeah.
this old friend in the wine store or the grocery store that this has already happened. So
Yeah.
this is when we
And-
start being taken on the journey in Jesus's head.
Yeah, Jesus is home with an impossible situation. And we're just like him. Where does this go from
Right.
here? How can you get over this? It's not a murder, but it's an accidental death.
And it's a horrific
And
death.
a horrific death. So he's in shock for a good chunk of it. And finally he starts trying to clean up the blood. You don't really know what he's trying to do. And the head is under like a couch.
A chair.
Or a chair. And he can't get himself to go in there and pick it up. So he takes the body and bundles it up and takes it into a cradle. Why aren't you calling the police?
Right.
Why are you trying to hide this? Those moments are done so well. And you're really in his head and suffering with him. And now you start to suffer for the mother. So that's why it's so brilliant that we
Right.
were so annoyed at her early, because now we say, okay, she's a mother. She's going to go through the worst possible thing that can happen to a parent. And she has no clue what's going on.
We also should mention that the salesperson, one of the main things he said is this glass is unbreakable, and made a big deal about the fact that it will never break. He's got this major problem right now, trying to figure out how to handle the fact that his baby, his son, has been killed by accident, but he feels, of course, responsible because he's the one that tripped and the baby got decapitated. So he has that to deal with. But there's also something else that he's had to deal with that we didn't tell you about. Another spoiler, which is a subplot. The 13-year-old girl has told him that she is going to tell his wife that he kissed her in the elevator.
I think the movie in the beginning wants us to side with him and saying, oh yeah, she's just a teenager. There's no what she's talking about. I'm kind of siding with her at this point.
Did he kiss her in the elevator, or was that a blackmail thing?
We don't know. He said he didn't.
I thought she admitted that he did not kiss her. I thought she was using that as a way to get him to tell his wife that he's going to leave her and be with the 13-year-old. Before all this horrible stuff happens, we find out that she has been communicating and having some relationship, so to speak, with Jesus. But the relationship seems to be initially her having a crush on him. She's very young. He's a good-looking guy. She likes him. She may not have a father figure. And then she had asked him to send her some poetry because she was working on, I think, a school project. And she asked for a very specific type of poetry. And he went ahead and sent it to her. So we kind of wonder, why would he send it to her? Even if it was for a school project, that's weird. It's not poetry he wrote. He took it from a well-known poet.
Yeah.
But it was almost like she was gathering that in order to blackmail him, have some evidence that he was sending her love poems, even though he didn't write them. Luis and I were commenting, why would he send her anything? And why would he be talking to her at all? So we were already siding with her because what is he doing giving in to her asking him for that stuff? And why is he sending her poems? And why is he even talking to her? And this thing about in the elevator, maybe he did kiss her, but I think that we knew in the film that he said, I didn't kiss you, and then she said, well, I'm going to say you did.
Yeah, because we were talking about how dumb it was for a guy in his position, a married guy, to have some sort of DM situation with a 13-year-old who lives in the same building as he is. It's basically predator behavior.
Yeah.
So what kind of man would even be in this situation? So that was bad enough. But the movie paints him as a likable guy and paints the wife as the unlikable one. And then also paints the girl as somewhat unlikable.
Yeah, she has an abrasive quality as well. Jesus, so it's almost like he's Jesus being martyred.
Yeah.
And apparently all these female characters are doing him wrong in some way. There's no way that you would want any man dealing with a 13-year-old girl. That's horrible.
Yeah, it's just wrong. A little warning light goes on, But the movie's kind of telling you, hey, this is a cool guy. Everybody likes him. He's a nice
He
dad.
means well.
He means well. And she has a crush on him. And she's kind of trying to twist things
Yeah.
to entrap him and force him to leave his wife. And I think that once we go to the next stage of the story, where basically instead of immediately telling his wife about what happened, he takes the body into their bedroom and tells the wife as she comes home that the baby's asleep. That kind of tells you
And
something.
don't disturb the baby.
So their relationship with the 13-year-old, which she should know about right away, is kept hidden.
Right.
And now the terrible accident with their baby is kept hidden. So the movie is basically telling you, hey, maybe you really should trust the girl that there's something going on. Why are you so automatically siding with the man?
And the girl, she wants to, quote unquote, run away with him and is wanting to make sure he tells his wife about their relationship. That was the conflict that we were introduced to right before this horrible thing happens to his child. We're already wondering where that's going to go. So there's a lot of sleight of hand, misdirection going on in this film that is causing us to have tension because we don't know what's really happening between them, and we don't like the fact that he is talking to her at all, but yet because of his behavior, he seems like a nice guy. We're taken in by him as well. So we're okay being in his head because he's the one that's the most grounded character. Everybody else is abrasive.
And one thing that we haven't figured out yet is all the Catholic symbolism in this. I recognize certain things. Of course, his name is Jesus. Her name is Maria. Of course, you say, hey, Maria was the mother of Jesus. Sure, but there's Mary Magdalene,
Right.
which was walking along with him with the apostles and whatever. Okay,
Right.
so we got that part. Also, the hideous coffee table is gold-plated or fake gold-plated.
It's fake gold.
It makes me think of the gold calf, which is a symbolism that,
Golden calf.
the idolatry situation where the Hebrews eventually created this golden calf and adored it as a god when they were stuck 40 days in the desert and trying to find Israel, the promised land. All these symbols are there. There's figures of Jesus on a cross on the wall.
They keep showing them.
They keep showing
There's
it.
different
So
figures, different art.
they're trying to say something about it. They're trying to say something like, hey, this guy felt like he was oppressed, and instead of holding on to what was true, which I guess is the baby, he was holding on to some fake idol, which was a table. So the table becomes a symbol of an earthly possession, something that you're so obsessed about owning it that it becomes owning you. The table is gold-plated. The table has two nude women. The table represents his masculinity, represents his agency. It represents his youth in some way, maybe being kind of extravagant and doing something
materialistic,
doing something on
basically.
impulse.
And he's, again, very nicely coddling the child and speaking badly about the child's mother, speaking badly about the child's name, showing in a way a disrespect for having the child, and then gets his wish in a way, because then the child is dead soon after. I should also mention that with the 13-year-old girl, the brother knows about this situation.
Yes.
And actually question him when he comes over. He says, hey, what's going on with your neighbor? So he confides in his brother about everything. And I should just skip ahead and say that eventually he does confide in his brother about what happened to the baby after his brother and his girlfriend come over.
And in terms of plot, not a lot happens after the death of the baby and the wife coming home and him hiding the body and hiding what happened from his wife. What's interesting now is that, of course, those little things that were put in motion, they start to happen.
So she comes back and he's been covering up. He took a shower, he's cleaning, he's doing all kinds of things. And you're just in his head thinking, what is going to happen here? She tries to go into the room several times to check on the baby. He stops her. He figures out various excuses. He grabs one of the baby monitors and brings it out. He's not letting her go in. But the main thing that happens when she comes home is that he tells her in a very sad way, he's not ready to say anything about the baby, and he never does to her. He reveals that the glass broke on the table. And he's very serious. And she's thinking, that's what you're so serious about? Because she had been trying to talk to him.
Yeah.
many times from the grocery store. She even had her friend try to talk to him to say, hey, guess what? It's me. I haven't talked to you in a while. And he's not saying a word, and he's not getting back to her. She's texting him. He's acting really strange. Obviously, we know why, but she doesn't know why, and she's getting really pissed off. She comes back and she thinks, oh, that's why you were so upset? Because the table broke? And she just goes at it with us again, maniacal laughter, thinks it's the funniest thing in the world. She even says, I wish I was here when it happened. She's scary.
She's like a witch.
Oh my god. This is so uncomfortable.
It's fucking insane.
She is so creepy. Oh my god. And see, that's why this is a dark comedy. It's using the idea that there's only one character in this film until he tells his brother, which is way later, almost at the end. There's only one character in this film that knows what happened. And then there's the audience. So there's that meta quality initially where we feel guilty and we feel like, oh my gosh, we got our wish. The baby isn't crying anymore, but the baby is dead. Oh no, we feel guilt. And then we feel guilt with him. Then they bring in these weird, absurd comedic moments where his wife is completely laughing, absolute
She's like laughing out loud, LOL, you know, and losing her mind.
She just thinks the whole thing is hilarious.
She said buying this table was worth it just for this.
Exactly. And so you're thinking, this is so tragic. She has no clue what really happened. She knows that the table broke, but she has no idea what happened to her child. And so it's this horrific element of realizing how this is, in a strange way, funny that she's laughing like this, but it's a horrible, horrible thing. It's a really dark comedy. And another element, when he's sitting at the table at one point earlier in the day, he looks up and he sees this bronze head, a baby head that happens to be in their bookcase. Oh my god! Did you see that? What is that doing on the shelf?
He's hearing the baby cry. Yeah.
And of course it makes you think of the disembodied head that's underneath
the real head.
That's underneath the chair that he hasn't been able to get, and you're looking at a head. It scares you at first, and then you laugh a little bit because it's so strange. It's absurdist. It's uncomfortable laughter. You don't really know what to do with some of the information you have that the other characters don't have, especially the wife.
Yeah, as you said, it's information that only those who are watching the movie and the person who's going through it
character
have.
Yeah.
She's having a grand old time laughing off the fate of the table. She doesn't know
the fate
that's
of her
also
child.
the fate of the baby, and they're intertwined.
Yeah.
This is this very dark scenario that becomes hilarious in a horrible, horrible way.
Yes.
And I think it takes a lot of talent
to
pull that off.
Absolutely.
You know, while it being simultaneously horrific and hilarious. And your brain is kind of pulling you in different directions.
It's,
you know, so
it's
this whole
genius.
So this moment that Jeannie is focusing on prior to the brother and the girlfriend arriving for the meal is crucial for the flow of the thing, because you have on one hand him miserable, shell-shocked, not knowing what to do, and her enjoying herself.
And there's one moment in the kitchen after she is laughing hysterically. He brings the monitor in because he's trying to reassure her there's nothing wrong with the baby in his own way, because he knows all this information and he doesn't want her to go into the room and check on the baby. So he brings in the baby monitor. She says, what's going on? I'm hearing this weird dripping sound coming from the baby monitor. It's like, oh, she's about to go check. No, he runs in there to check. We know what it is, of course. It's blood dripping from the body. From the body that's soaking through the crib, because he put the baby in there without a head. And it's soaking and it's dripping from the crib onto the floor. So there's more blood. So he's having to deal with that. He comes back and he says, oh yeah, there was just something wrong with the monitor. It's okay now. It was just some static or something. I think that was his excuse. I don't remember exactly. That's a moment, I think, where she's, she has a little twitch of, I wonder
Maybe
what that
something's going on.
sound is.
Yeah.
You don't hear anything else, but I guess normally with a baby monitor, if the baby's asleep, you wouldn't hear the baby breathing, probably because it's too soft. So it's believable, but then what is that sound? And then being told it's just some static or problem with the monitor and that it's fine now.
And of course, this is very scary as far as us being in the scene and hearing the drip, drip, drip. It's terrifying. Not because of some of an unknown. It's terrifying because of something that is known by us.
Right.
You know, most movies will do something like this and you don't know what's going on. That's supposed to make you scared. It's the opposite here.
Another thing that happens that involves the 13-year-old girl and her mother is that he runs out of cleaning fluid, detergent, and all the other things. He's been trying to clean up the mess before his wife gets home. So this is earlier. He goes over there to borrow some stuff from them. And of course, the 13-year-old girl talks to him privately and says, listen, if you don't tell your wife by a certain time today at 5, that's what Louise says, then I'm going to tell her about us. That starts to feel less problematic now. I mean, before it was like that was his main problem, but now he's trying to clean up the mess and to deal with what is he going to do about his dead child and how is he going to talk to his wife about that, which is much more urgent than worrying about this 13-year-old girl who's going to expose him for something that maybe he did or did not do. So that comes into play later because she shows up later on after the brother and his girlfriend show up. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the brother and the girlfriend and what happens during their meal.
Yeah, the next big thing that happens in this movie is the brother and the girlfriend arriving.
The brother's name is Carlos.
Carlos.
So we have Jesus, who is the main character here. His brother, Carlos, comes over with, I believe her name is Cristina. They say Chris. Chris for short.
This particular movie, The Coffee Table, does not give us any information about what do they do for a living. Clearly, the main characters, Jesus and Maria, live in an apartment that they inherited from a grandmother. They didn't buy that thing.
No.
They're having this middle-class life, maybe upper middle class, probably middle class.
It's a nice apartment.
It's nice. But it's not like they're super successful. And spending 2 years trying to have a baby is not cheap either.
Right.
So I don't know if health insurance in Spain would cover it.
I don't know.
So Carlos, the brother, arrives with a girlfriend who's probably half his age or even younger.
Well, they said she was 18.
18.
And
so
he
Carlos
looks a lot older
Carlos
than that.
looked to be 48 or 49.
Especially with the gray hairs.
But anyway, they arrive. There's some conflict just because you have a protagonist who's done something horrible, trying to hide it from everyone. A brother, Carlos, who has his young girlfriend. We'll later find out that she's pregnant, 4 months pregnant. Maria, who has no clue but can sniff out something's very wrong because her husband's a mess. And they have this meal where the protagonist can't even face eating. The conflict here devolves into somewhat challenging meal, but it's completely exacerbated by the real drama that's happening.
Maria keeps trying to go into that room to see the child earlier before the brother, Carlos, and Chris, his girlfriend, show up. Jesus is trying everything he can to stop her from going in there or looking at the baby or doing this and that. He got to the point where he grabs her and he tells her how much he loves her and he says, oh, things were so nice before the baby, and she agrees. He just does everything he can. He almost seduces her. It's like doing again, sleight of hand to try to get her to not look in the crib, to not go further in the room, to do everything he can, and he succeeds. He succeeds in almost hypnotizing her and gets her to leave the room. You mentioned that the scene was really interesting because of his behavior, because he was feeling sick. He had this cut on his hand from the accident with the table with the baby, and that supposedly is why he's acting the way he is, where he's upset and everything.
It's all about the coffee table.
It's all about the coffee table, but a bandaged hand, which is a very slight injury considering. So she grabs his hand at some point. She's very loving to him at the table. Because he was so loving to her in the room, she's starting to sort of melt a little bit and be more loving to him. And then she keeps talking about how, the cut is just, a problem for him and all this other stuff. That's some humor too, because we know that this is much more than a cut or an injury to his hand. The other thing that's interesting is that Chris, the girlfriend, the one that we find out is pregnant, she is a vegan. And she doesn't eat eggs. Maria made a Spanish omelet with eggs, onions, and potatoes. Carlos is talking about how he's become vegan because she's vegan and how they don't eat eggs. The scene is interesting because people can't take part.
You made me realize how Carlos is doing the same thing that Jesus has done and is being subservient to his wife and becoming vegan just because she's vegan. It's just like, again, taking away his agency and saying, oh, so she's vegan, so I'm going to be vegan as well. Right. Whether that's the main conflict for the other guy, for Jesus. That's the reason he stuck to the table. That's the reason he put all of this in motion.
But we should also mention that she's not that much older, 5 years older than the 13-year-old girl. Then you're kind of wondering about these brothers. Could it mean that Jesus was actually doing something with this 13-year-old girl? You're not really sure who to believe, but the brother knows about it. So he's, hey, the trouble with the 13-year-old girl's up and figured out or taken care of. And of course, he's worried that that's the only problem. But that's right before Jesus finally says, hey, this happened.
And if you think about this from the point of view of the protagonist, as a guy who's been emasculated, who's been unhappy in his relationship, at least since his wife decided she needed to get pregnant, and she was going to get pregnant, and they were going to have a baby, you could imagine that someone who's in this messy situation, if they had the upbringing they both had as brothers, that he would be vulnerable or he would be attracted to someone much younger, because she was seeing him as a man versus his wife. That's what gives credence to the possibility that maybe he did do something wrong. Maybe we should be listening to the girl and trusting her, listening to her, instead of just dismissing her. So now the movie first made us feel guilty about wanting the baby to stop crying. And then they made us feel guilty for not believing her in the first place and siding with him. That's the kind of stuff that makes this particular film brilliant.
I think the screenwriters are brilliant, and the one that's listed first is Christina Borobia as Chris Borobia, which is very interesting because Chris and Christina is the name of the girlfriend of Carlos, the brother, and Borobia is Jesus' last name, so probably Carlos's last name as well. So they took the lead writer, Christina Borobia, or Chris Borobia, and took her first name and last name and put them into the characters, like amalgamated.
So remember we talked about the director, he is not only the director, of course his name is Caye Casas, but he's also credited as a second writer in the movie.
This writing team did such an amazing job. If I was voting in an awards season for this and they had all kinds of nominations, including screenwriting would get it for me.
Yes.
That'd be top.
Thanks to IMDb trivia, Caye is a short version of Caetano. Is the name of the baby.
There we go. So that's perfect. Thank you. And then the last name, though, I don't know was used. Casas? Who knows?
I don't remember.
The protagonist, we see from his point of view, he's lightheaded. No one knows what's going on other than the fact that he has a cut on his...
hand.
They call it a cut, but it's an injury and probably a gash. And he's bandaged it up so they can't really see what it is. They show from his point of view people eating in a weird way and sometimes really quickly and making noise and seeing food go into their mouths. So that is interesting editing, and that was made to make the meal look more horrific.
At some point he runs into a bathroom and he starts leaving a voice message to his wife admitting to the whole thing, and basically is a suicide note. As he's finishing the message, his brother hears the end of it and says, what's going on, tell me.
When he tells
and then we have a cut. We know their conversation happened off screen.
And they're in the room.
And they're in the room, and he's telling the brother, he's telling Carlos, don't look at it. Why do you have to look at it? And Carlos goes and still tries to look at it, the body.
Right.
Horrified, starts to lose his mind.
He actually is trying to figure out a solution to the problem. He says, okay, I'm going to think about this. Give me a moment. Let me think about this.
Let me think about it.
And he knows that the head is under the chair because Jesus tells him. So he's actually trying to solve the problem. And so we're thinking, how is he going to solve the problem? Well, that gets interrupted with the 13-year-old coming to the door to tell his wife, and she says, your husband kissed me in the elevator. And right at that moment, she's with her dog. The dog runs in, and guess what?
Dog starts sniffing around, smells the blood, realizes there's something under the chair, and it's going for it. So now Carlos is trying to avoid a nightmarish scenario, and he runs and grabs the head and tries to keep it from everyone else.
Oh no! The dog's gonna get it! Oh my god.
and
The
then
dog bumped it with his snout or
no,
something.
the dog is
Moved.
getting to it. So Carlos grabbed the dog and pulled him back, and grabbed him instead and stood with his back toward everyone. And then it's obvious that something happened because Maria sees the blood. And it's like, what is this blood?
Right.
What's going on? What is the
And
dog?
Maria ends up with the head in her hands.
Well, basically, she says, let me see it, let me see it. And Carlos, no,
grabs it.
you don't have to see it.
Yeah.
So she grabs it.
Oh my
And she
God.
grabs it and she goes outside on the
Yep,
veranda.
on the veranda.
And we're like, oh shit, she's going to jump.
Yeah.
So she jumps off screen.
Yeah.
We know she's gone.
Really interesting direction there because they show her there and then you don't see the balcony and then you see it again and it's empty. So that was nicely done.
I don't remember the last shot before we go down to the ground level. But
Yeah,
basically,
I think that's when Chris throws up and there's all
Chris
kinds of...
yeah.
It's just chaotic.
The
It's chaotic.
13-year-old girl was like losing her mind.
Right.
Later they said she had a panic attack or something like that. But now, everyone's on the ground. There's a bunch of looky-loos with their phones taking footage. The cops say, oh yeah, they both jumped. Maria jumped with the head. I guess the body's in the apartment still. Tragedy, right? Massive tragedy. If you think about it, how else could this thing end? Carlos is in a police car staring into space. The cops he keeps saying one thing.
The coffee table.
The coffee table. Which is a much longer expression in Spanish, by the way.
This ends with the police car leaving the scene.
As the police car leaves,
we see the coffee table, but behind the coffee table is the family of 3.
yeah.
So you see an angelic portrait, a tableau. Maria looking up toward her husband. Their husband's holding the baby.
Kind of embracing her and holding the baby.
And holding the baby. It's like this beautiful scene.
And the coffee table in front of them.
And the coffee table's there. It's like the afterlife with the coffee table and the way things could have been in the happy afterlife. It did look religious when you think of it.
Kind of was. Well, and then you see the coffee table there with them without the glass cover. So it's not like it's the idealized version of the coffee table. It's basically they're dragging the coffee table with them to the afterlife.
Yeah. But anyway, there's the 3 characters posed in a very angelic, very idealized, and very peaceful.
It's like a religious painting.
There's got to be some Catholic symbolism there. I'm sure we're going to read up on this later. They keep showing Jesus figures on the cross and other Catholic symbols. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, we need
what that
to
means.
do some digging here. So we invite everyone who's listening to this to go do their own research and see if we can figure out how the Catholic symbolism applies to this. In closing thoughts, I think it's masterful. I think it's a horror film with comedic elements.
I do agree. It's unnerving and you do laugh in a weird way and you feel very uncomfortable laughing.
You're trying to release the tension of that horrific, nightmarish scenario throughout the whole thing.
Throughout the entire film, you have this suspense and tension and not knowing how this is going to be resolved or if it ever will be resolved. You know that it's inevitable that this is going to be discovered. You just don't know how. I had ideas actually while watching this. I was thinking that he was going to somehow frame the 13-year-old girl.
Me too. That was my
for the death. He's going to let her come in. He's going to somehow set something up so it looks like she went in there and killed the baby. And then he's going to be home free, so to speak. But it's horrible.
They were going to throw the 13-year-old with the baby out the window and say that she did it as retaliation for unrequited love.
Here's the other thing that I thought, especially when the brother was involved, that somehow they were going to go to a hospital. I thought he was going to do it before his wife came home, to tell you the truth. And somehow replace the baby, the changeling idea, so that the wife would come home to an actual baby.
I really think they should have just gotten a robo baby and call it a day.
And call it a day.
And the robo baby probably has a mute button, so there wouldn't be a problem anymore.
This was an interesting ending. I think it was a comeuppance ending. It's sad that she had to die because she was a vilified character. It's a tragic tale that somehow managed to have comedic elements. That is really hard to say, but it's true.
You could even be considered a sort of moral tale. You have a very fallible protagonist who has done things wrong in certain ways. He has made mistakes and he's being severely punished for it. And I think the witch-like character of Maria, which we are poised to not like, is clearly some sort of long-suffering, tragic hero who ends up dying.
She martyrs herself.
She's a martyr.
Jesus.
She's a martyr, yeah.
Yeah.
So the movie is really telling you, see, you judged her. You didn't like her. You think she wasn't deserving of your love. You thought he was. Because he's nice. Because he has a charming personality. Just like everyone else did. He gets the attention. He gets the excuses. But you really should be looking at who's really suffering in this. Maria, the wife, and possibly the 13-year-old girl who is being targeted by this guy. She's a victim. She should be respected. So that's what's really brilliant about this. That's what makes it a moral tale with religious undertones. That's why I think all the Catholic names in this and symbols are so important.
I think it's interesting that it's called The Coffee Table. When you think of the title being The Coffee Table and you realize what happened, right after this horrible thing happened with the coffee table, as horror fans, the immediate thought is the coffee table did it, right? I attributed the death, not knowing that he even tripped because I couldn't tell. It was off screen. All I heard was glass shatter, and I thought, oh my gosh, the coffee table did something. So that was my first thought. And then when you find out what happened, the coffee table decapitated the child. I felt like the coffee table is doing some otherworldly being's bidding. That would be the normal horror trope.
I think this is subtext. It does fit Catholicism. Basically, the coffee table represents a pagan god that required a blood sacrifice. What is the sacrifice for? To free this middle-aged married man of the burden of having a wife he doesn't like, a baby he didn't want, and a 13-year-old he wanted to get it on with. It's like an unholy union of him unconsciously sacrificing his sole male heir
to the gods.
To this pagan god, a golden calf, idolatry.
You got it. I
right?
think you hit the nail on the head. When he went to get the cleaning fluid from the neighbors and he had that private conversation with the 13-year-old, did he or did he not promise that he would go away with her?
He actually did. I think he never meant it, but I think inside, that's what he wanted. And that's why it's so important that his brother, Carlos, is in a relationship with a girl who's only 5 years older
than the
neighbor, than the 13-year-old. Maybe he thinks, oh yeah, he is able to mold her. Yeah. He's saying, oh yeah, I'm a vegan now because of her, but he's eating the egg. Yeah, I'll let her think.
It's all talk.
I'll let her think I'll do what she wants, but I'll wear the pants and I'll be the man in this.
Because she's only 18.
Exactly.
I can exert power.
And influence.
You completely opened this up to, I think, what it really is. This idea of the blood sacrifice makes perfect sense. And that is a trope. And usually the pagan gods, they want the youngest possible sacrifice too. To have a baby be sacrificed.
The blood of the innocent.
You got it. Nailed it. All right. I think at this point we should bid everybody adieu. But I will say that both of us, if it wasn't obvious to you before, we both give it a thumbs up.
And I dare say I am all thumbs about this one.
I was mesmerized. And this movie goes by quickly because it's only an hour and a half and it's just tightly done. Never a dull moment. It will take you on a journey. It'll take you through this horrible adventure. So definitely see it.
I think that this really represents what filmmaking is all about. And it shows you the power of horror films to really kind of dig deep in the psyche and grab some stuff that you don't want to look at and have you face it. I think if there's a movie, a modern horror movie, that really kind of does its job in terms of forcing you to face a horrible fear like this and live to tell the tale, feel the tale. Yeah, I think that this is just one of the best in the past few years.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
All right. So we both give it a hearty thumbs up. We are very satisfied after watching a film about a very horrific situation, which tells you a lot about the screenwriting on this. This was, again, masterful. I guess it's time to bid you
adieu.
Bye,
Bye for now.
Toodaloo.